Hi and welcome to this look at the 14-day weather prospects. When forecasting in the UK, there is always quite a lot of uncertainty. However, in the last couple of days, computer models have really firmed up on the idea of a significant nationwide cold spell developing. In fact, it looks like it will be the coldest period that we've had since the beast from the east in February 2018. That's actually when I took the photograph that you can see of the frozen Grand Union Canal flowing through Berkhamsted. Okay, I'll start by taking a look at the picture across Europe and the North Atlantic. This chart is for 09 GMT, Thursday the 4th of February. What we can see is an area of low pressure centred over Ireland. Much of the UK is under quite a mild southwesterly flow, but there is a cold easterly across Scotland, and the white shade in there indicates snow. I'll play the sequence, and the key thing to watch in the coming days is the behaviour of this low pressure. Here we go. The time sequence is in 3 hour steps. I'm going to pause it here. Saturday the 6th of February, 06 GMT. Already things are beginning to change markedly. The low pressure is slipping away southwards, and more of the UK is coming under the influence of this cold, very cold easterly flow with high pressure centred to the north here over Scandinavia. You can see the white shadings making its way further south. I'll continue playing this because things change very quickly as we head through the next few frames. And I'm just going to stop it there at 12 GMT, Sunday the 7th of February. And by this stage, it's really a very wintry picture across the whole of the UK. We've got low pressure now centred to the south over northern France, and a very cold easterly flow covering all of the United Kingdom. And you can just about make out the isobars there, the white lines very closely packed together. So it will actually be pretty windy. We've got the possibility of prolonged periods of sleet and snow in southern England, central England, perhaps East Anglia, and in other northern and eastern areas, heavy snow showers have been blown in by this easterly wind. I'll just play this forward a little bit further so we can see how it continues to develop, and we're going into next week. I'll just stop it there. 21 GMT, Tuesday the 9th of February. It's a very similar picture. There's still this keen and bitterly cold easterly flow covering all of the UK. We've got sleet and snow showers affecting much of central and eastern Britain, perhaps some pushing in into Northern Ireland too. Probably lost by then the more prolonged periods of sleet and snow which were affecting southeastern parts of England. But still, it's an extremely wintry picture. I'm just going to finish this sequence to show you what happens, and I'll stop it there, which is 06 GMT, Thursday, the 11th of February. Of course, by this stage, the details are really becoming much less certain. But what we can start to see is milder air beginning to creep in from the southwest. So weather fronts associated with this area of low pressure, often well to the west of the UK at this stage, but it is beginning to influence our weather, and of course that could lead to the milder air pushing northeastwards across all parts of the UK and bringing an end to the cold spell. But that is extremely uncertain. It may become very slow moving as it begins to push northeastwards, and where the cold air meets the mild air, there is the likelihood of very heavy snowfall. And if it becomes slow moving, that could well become very disruptive. But it is extremely uncertain about how this is going to develop through the second half of next week. Okay, to illustrate what this cold spell is currently looking like, I'll show you a few more charts. This one is for 15 GMT on Monday the 8th of February. It's generated by the GFS model. It shows upper air temperatures. So what we can see is values range from about minus 13 Celsius in the northeast down to minus 10, minus 11 in northern England, and then a tad colder in the south there, -12. Often -10 is used as a benchmark for very cold weather in the UK. So we can see that this is meeting that particular marker. How does it compare with the beast from the east spell in 2018? Well, here's a chart from then. And what we can see is values in southern England were down to about -14, -15. So that was a little bit colder, maybe 2, 3, 4 Celsius colder across the southern part of the UK at the upper air level. Remember, though, it was also later in the season. It came at the very end of February and in the early part of March when the days are longer. But still, I think we're just a little bit short of those upper air temperatures at the moment. Nonetheless, it's looking pretty potent. Another factor is going to be the wind speed. I think it's worth taking a quick look at this chart for 15 GMT on Monday the 8th of February. These are forecast gusts in miles per hour. What we can see across much of the country is values of 25, 30, 35 miles per hour. It's pretty windy. Now, couple that with these forecast temperatures. These are the 2 metre temperatures, so the ones that we experience down at the surface. And these are maximum for 15 GMT on the 8th. Look at these values around London, -3 Celsius. That is very cold indeed. Up in Scotland and locally there's a couple of -5s. In fact, it's virtually sub-zero across the whole of the United Kingdom. Only a couple of degrees higher in parts of Wales, northwestern England and Northern Ireland. But it's a bitterly cold day. It's sort of if this is correct, it's pushing the values that we experienced in February 1991, almost getting down to similar levels as January 1987, which was truly exceptional. I think in practice this may be overstating the depth of the cold, and we may actually have values somewhat higher than this, but nonetheless it does look very cold indeed. Now, as well as windy and very cold, there's the likelihood of significant snowfall. Forecasting snow in the UK more than a day or so ahead is extremely difficult, so I'm not showing this chart because I think it's the outcome that we're going to have. It's purely to give you an indication of what some of the computer models are showing at the moment. It's for 15 GMT, Monday the 8th of February. It's showing accumulated snow depths in centimetres. Look at these values over Scotland, over the Highlands. They're 90 centimetres locally. That's astonishing. Down to Northern England, we've got 25, 30 centimetres over parts of Pennines there. Come down into central England, southeastern England and East Anglia. Plenty of snow there. In fact, in East Anglia, we've got values of 40 centimetres showing. That would be very disruptive were it to be correct. Now, putting all that together, here's the actual forecast which it generates from that data. This is actually, I've taken a snapshot from Berkhamsted, but it's really applicable to much of southern and central England. And what I wanted to draw attention to was we saw those very low maximum daytime temperatures, -3 Celsius perhaps. We saw the likelihood of snow. We also saw the strong winds, gusts of 30 miles an hour perhaps. And look what it does to the feels like temperature. -11, -10. In fact, during the early afternoon, the warmest part of the day, it's a feels like or a wind chill temperature of -9 Celsius. That really is perishingly cold for the UK. I'm going to show you another snow depth chart from a different model, but for the same time. This is from the DWD Icon model, and it's very different to the one we just looked at, which was from GFS. Still got very deep snow across the Scottish Highlands, but instead of 80, 90 centimetres, it's 50, 60, 75. Over Pennines, there's 20 centimetres or so of snow. So it's a similar pattern, but the values are lower. Then we come down to central and eastern parts of England, East Anglia. Instead of 40 centimetres, which the GFS was showing, we're now down to 9 centimetres. Still a moderate fall of snow, but much, much different in its impact. And I'm just using these charts to illustrate the inconsistencies in the amount of snow which the different computer models are forecasting. Which one's going to be correct? Well, it's impossible to say. I suspect the GFS is over forecasting the amount of snow, whilst I wouldn't be at all surprised if this icon run is under forecasting the amount. Perhaps we'll end up in East Anglia, eastern parts of England, with maybe 10, 15, 20 centimetres of snow, which will be disruptive in itself, but not quite as bad as the amounts which the GFS model currently is showing. Now, I mentioned the possibility of milder air beginning to push up from the southwest during the middle and second half of next week. I'll show you a few charts to illustrate what may happen. This is from the GFS model. It's for 00 GMT, Friday the 12th of February. The very cold upper level air, again shown by the blues and purples, and the milder air shown by the greens. What you can see by then is an area of low pressure off to the southwest and milder air circulating around it and pushing up across parts of Wales, southwestern England and parts of southern England. The cold air still covering much of the central and northern parts of the United Kingdom. Where the cold and the mild air masses meet, there is the potential for very heavy snowfall. And it's quite likely that that boundary zone could become rather slow moving as it progresses northeastwards. I'll show you a chart from the ECM model for the same time. It's actually very similar. We can see the area of low pressure off to the southwest. There are differences, but the basic patterns is the same. If I bring up the Canadian GEM model once more for 00 GMT, Friday the 12th of February, what you can see there is that the low pressure is much closer to southwestern Britain, and the milder air, the greens, have made more inroads. They're pushing up across southern and central parts of Britain. Virtually the whole of Wales is under the milder air by then. And the snow is going to be affecting northern England, perhaps southern Scotland through this period if the GEM model is correct. So the whole thing has shifted further north if this is correct. Remember, it's another view from a computer model. It's no more or less likely in practice to be correct from the previous two ones, which we've just looked at. Another option would be for the area of low pressure to head further south, the milder air to head into northern France, and for the whole of the UK to remain under that really cold block of dense upper level air. That's a possibility. I'll bring up the GEFS 2 metre temperature data tables to perhaps give a little bit more insight into that potential transition to milder conditions in the southern half of the UK at least. This is for London, South East England, and what we can see is the blue columns are showing forecast temperatures to be at or below 0 Celsius. So by Sunday the 7th of February, 71% of all the runs in model are going with that. By Monday the 8th, it's 65%. Tuesday the 9th, it's 74%. So this is really cold. This is suggesting a likelihood of sub-zero days even in southern England. Wednesday the 10th, not much changes, it's 71%. Thursday the 11th, when some of the computer models are indicating things will begin to transition, even then 65% of the runs in the GEFS model are showing temperatures remaining below 0 Celsius in much of southern England. By the 12th and the 13th and the 14th, that's really when things look like beginning to change. Currently, we see the values fall from 45%, 29%, and then by the 14th of February, Valentine's Day, there's only 13% of the GFS runs keeping temperatures at or below 0 Celsius in southern England. I think it's worth quickly taking a look at the 16-day GEFS line graphs. This one for London has upper air temperatures on the top half of the plot and precipitation on the lower. The very cold period's well signalled, I think. So from about the 7th of February through to the 12th, most of the runs in the ensemble are dropping down to -10, -11, -12 Celsius at the 850 HPA level. It's worth mentioning there is a smaller cluster here of milder runs. You can see there's quite a big spread there. Not all of the runs are tightly packed together, so it's indicating that a milder outcome or a less cold outcome is still a possibility. I wouldn't discount it entirely in southern England. If I switch across to the Belfast one, just to contrast that, so we've gone further north, where so what we can see here again is that the cold period is clearly signalled, and there's actually much less scatter between these runs. Can you see the lines are much more tightly packed together? There's less space between them. So there's one straggler there, which is bringing somewhat milder air in. But all the other 32, which are actually plotted on here, are bringing in that cold period. So the degree of confidence for the northern half of the UK is higher than it is for the southern half. The Edinburgh one, again, all the runs are tightly packed between about the 7th of February and the 11th of 12th. So the cold period's more or less, the very cold period is really more or less nailed on. It's just that nagging uncertainty for southern England. I think what we've seen during the last couple of days is the models have firmed up strongly towards backing this very cold period of weather, even in southern counties. But at the moment, there's still that low chance, maybe 10 or 15%, perhaps 20% chance of it becoming less cold at times in southern counties through that period. So it's the unlikely outcome, but as I say, I wouldn't entirely discount it just yet. Okay, to summarise, it's an unsettled start, but the cold weather in the north moves quickly southwards during the first few days of the forecast period. It leads to an increasing risk of disruptive snow in northern and eastern Britain, and possibly central counties too. It looks like becoming bitterly cold. In fact, the lowest temperatures probably since a beast from the east spell in February and March 2018. Daytime maximum values may well remain at or below 0 Celsius in much of the country. Towards the end of the first week and into the second week, there is a growing chance of milder air trying to return from the southwest. As that bumps into the cold air over the UK, there is the potential for heavy and disruptive snowfall. However, there's a great deal of uncertainty about how quickly that mild air will progress northeastwards. So there we have it. It's a very, very wintry picture across the UK in the coming days. I'll keep you up to date, and if you enjoyed this video, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Thank you very much for watching now. Bye.